To be human is to be stupid, to be ungrateful, to be blind, to be greedy, to be self-involved, to be rushed. And that's why every time I have these moments of reflection, when I'm laying in bed in the pitch blackness staring up at the ceiling, I'm not really looking at the ceiling. I'm looking at everything beyond it. And it's in these moments that I feel somehow, more than human? Or at least like a finely tuned human. The way I think humans were meant to be. To be thinking of more than themselves and trying to touch the heavens. I don't believe in heaven. But there I am, a human in his bed. No, a man in his bed. A 33-year-old man, 33-year-old, 5'9", 175-pound man named Chris in his king-sized helix bed. Zoom out, I'm in a house. Zoom out, the 8th house on the southernmost block of Gray Street. Zoom out, I'm in Lake Balboa. Zoom out, I'm in Van Nuys. Zoom out, I'm in Los Angeles. Zoom out, I'm in California. Zoom out, I'm in the USA. Zoom out, I'm on Earth. Zoom out, I'm what? Way down there. I'm here. I lost my mother a year ago. Well, nearly. It's been 11 months and 2 days. You know, she only grounded me once in my entire life. I was, maybe 8 or 9. I grew up in Michigan, and I had a friend across the street. We would play together all the time. His name was Buzz. And Buzz had an annoying little sister named Farah that would follow us around everywhere trying to butt into our adventures. Well, one day that summer, Buzz and I are riding our bikes in the neighborhood, and Farah, she didn't have hers with her, and so she kept trying to chase after us on foot. Back and forth, and she's just whining the whole time. So I decided I would try to scare her. I turned my bike around, and I just shot straight towards her like a fucking missile. And of course I wouldn't have actually hit her with my bike, and of course she jumped out of the way in time anyway, but my mom, she saw it through the porch window, and that's when she yelled at me, and she said that I would be grounded, and my punishment was no bike riding until December. And this is Michigan, mind you. I said, Mom, how am I supposed to ride my bike in December? And she said, oh, that's a good point. Guess it'll have to be spring then. The first time I do it, I'm almost 20, and I can't believe it. The thought goes through my mind of, what would my mom say right now? And even worse, what would my dad say? I tell myself, it's much too late for that. Your dad is the reason you're doing this in the first place. I had a mentor once, a teacher, who I'd confided in. And I asked him if he could tell me what this thing felt like. He said, I tried it once. Just once, because it felt so unbelievably amazing, I knew I couldn't do it again or else I'd be fucked. So, I'm thinking about him and my mom and my dad, which is the last thing you want to think about at a time like this. You want to appear cool, you don't want it to seem like your first time when it so obviously is. So I'm sitting at the edge of this bed, and Teddy, his name was Teddy, by the way, not like a teddy bear, no, far from it. Teddy comes up to me. He starts to slowly take off his belt, and he hands it to me. There's a needle on the nightstand. I hand him the belt back. I say I want to watch him do it first. He smiles. He takes another step toward me, and for a second I think Teddy's going to try to kiss me, but he doesn't. But I remember thinking in that moment I wasn't sure if I was happy that he didn't kiss me, because either way in that moment a kiss from Teddy seemed much less scary than what I was about to do. I watch him do it. I study his face for any signs of pain or despair. I look for any excuse to bail out of my plan, but to my surprise, he looks so happy. So happy. And it's almost as if the feeling is too much for his body to contain, and so he just spreads his arms out wide, and he falls back onto the bed. I think he's about to do fucking snow angels or something. And then it's my turn. I take the belt, and I wrap it tight, really tight around my bicep. I find the vein in my wrist. I think the needle's gonna hurt, but it doesn't. It just collapses into my flesh like one of those retractable prop knives they use in TV and movies. And then it's just heaven. And I know right away nothing in my life has ever felt this good, and if I could just feel like this all the time, Oh man, you know what I really love? Pizza. Seriously. I mean, who doesn't, right? I mean, unless if you're allergic, okay. But if somebody tells you they just don't care for pizza, like, your best bet is to run for the fucking hills, because that person is a fucking psychopath and is not to be trusted. I mean, you can't beat pepperoni, right? There's got to be a reason that the international emoji for pizza is just a simple pepperoni slice. I might like pizza too much. I blame my mother, actually, because when I was growing up, we would have these porch parties during a thunderstorm. We would just sit on the porch with the windows open, eating pizza and listening to the sounds of the thunder and the rain. When I think of growing up, actually, that's the first thing I think of is pizza porch parties in the summer. She told me a story once about her and my dad, and this was a few years before I came along. Dad had just gotten this house on Biddle Street, and they were fixing it up. Well, the backstory they tell me is that in those days, my dad never let my mom get a pizza delivered. He was against ordering delivery because he said that they could get their lazy asses into the car, pick one up from any of the nearby spots in town, and get back by the time it would take one of these pimple-faced drivers to deliver it. Well, my mom said the real reason was because my dad was a cheap ass and he didn't want to have to pay the delivery fee plus tip. So this one morning, it's the middle of summer, Michigan, humid. They're getting ready, and my dad, he had this kind of newer job. It was a sales company on the outskirts of town. Mom knew where it was, but she didn't really go out that way too often. And he tells her that he's going to have to work late that night, so to not bother waiting around for dinner. And she says that's fine. She's got errands to run, and she's going to finally start painting the living room. So he goes to work. Fast forward several hours, and it's early evening, and she's just beat. But she's starving, and she still has a little bit of painting left to finish, but she's covered in paint and sweat, and so the last thing she wants to do is cook anything or go out somewhere to pick it up. And so it occurs to her, hey, I could just get a pizza delivered. He wasn't there to tell her no. So she does. She calls Domino's. 30 minutes later, doorbell rings. My mom opens the door, and there's my dad in a fucking Domino's pizza uniform, holding the large pepperoni and ham that she had just ordered. And I don't know if you know what the Domino's uniforms looked like in the mid-'80s. They were like these terrible red, white, and blue polos with the huge styrofoam trucker hats. And she's totally in shock. But my dad is experiencing two things. Number one, he's pissed at her for getting a pizza delivered. Financially. But two, he's so embarrassed because he did not want anyone to know, especially her, that he had been working all this time for months as a pizza boy. Like, my dad was a cool guy. You understand? Actually, a couple years before that story takes place, when he first asked her out, it was a few years after high school, and they were both still living in town, and they were hanging out at this local bar in Jackson, Michigan that still existed at the time, called the Brown Hut. My dad sees my mom. They get to talking. He asks her out for that Friday night. She says yes. Leading up to the date, legend has it that he's telling all his friends, can you believe it? I've got a date this weekend with Luke Stanaway, who was the prettiest girl in high school. You remember her? And she's telling all of her friends, can you believe it? I got a date this weekend with Craig Nieblo, who was the coolest guy in high school. And now, fast forward, poor fucker gets sent to his own house for delivery. Like, he had to have known it was a matter of time, right? And also, didn't she think it was weird that he was always coming home with so much change in his pockets? Like, I don't think the job lasted very long after that. I don't believe in heaven. I do believe in heroin. It's one of my favorite things in the world, which is so weird, now being on the other side of it. Well, I should mention I'm not on it anymore. Sober 10 years. But those 2 years were... I mean, even just the fact I can wear shirts like this and not have to worry about hiding my track marks. I'd wanted to try it because of my dad. He was a secret addict until one night my grandpa, his dad, finds him on the bathroom floor with a needle stuck in his arm. They were supposed to go to a play that night, but curtains closed. I have no idea how he was able to hide it from anyone. I mean, I knew my dad was a party guy, and he had sold weed and coke with his buddies in the 70s and 80s. that's the 70s and 80s. But like heroin, I had no idea he'd even touched the stuff until after he had already died from it. And I was, what, almost 18. Right at the end of my senior year. I go to college, get a girlfriend, lose my virginity, start figuring out who I am. I get into theater. My dad always thought that I would have a future in performing. But at the same time, while all this is happening, I'm just having so many questions and things that I feel like I can't really talk about with my mom. And I'm just realizing that maybe it's because I was in Michigan and my dad lived in Arizona most of my life. I just didn't feel like I knew him on a very deep level. And so it's just driving me crazy. Like, what led him to heroin? Did he like it? Who else knew about it? Is it really that much different than other hard drugs? I mean, yeah, after all, my dad didn't mean to overdose. He had just been sold a bad bag. It was laced, by his dealer. The same bag that actually killed 2 other people. At last I heard, the dealer was in prison in Detroit. I don't know his name. I don't want to. But then I think, what does it feel like? I thought if I could just try it once, it could, I don't know, bring me closer to him, help me understand what he was going through on a deeper level. Big mistake, Christopher. Only my mom calls me Christopher, by the way. And my middle name is Robin. Christopher fucking Robin. Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, school was a lot of fun. My dad, for the record, did not want to name me Chris. Dad wanted to name me Luke. Not Lucas, just Luke. After his favorite movie, which was Cool Hand Luke. With Paul Newman on the Chain Gang. Yeah. What was I talking? Oh yeah, I'd been thinking about it for so long, 2 years at this point, when I finally get the opportunity to try it. I'd met Teddy at a party after one of our college plays. He was a friend of a friend of a friend. I don't even remember who. I know that he wasn't in college with us. I just remember thinking that he was really funny and cool, and this girl, Kristen, that I had a big crush on, she seemed to be into him, and so naturally I was trying to copy his moves, or at least just put an end to that. I don't know. Teddy takes us into the kitchen, and I do coke for the first time. Kristen did it first, and I didn't want to chicken out. I remember thinking that it was funny that Teddy put it on a dinner plate. He presented it to us like a dessert, like a treat. And man, I liked it. I just came alive, and I started singing and doing impressions and just becoming the life of the party. And now, finally, Kristen is paying more attention to me than Teddy, which is great. But then she had to leave abruptly because her sister needed to be picked up from a separate party. And so I thought, okay, great, I'll just walk you out. I'll be a gentleman. I'm walking her out, and on my way out, Teddy stops me, and he tells me that he thinks I'm funny and that we should party again. I don't even like saying his name this many times. The last time I saw that motherfucker, I would have ripped his head off, but I was in a grocery store, and yeah. I don't believe in heaven. Can't believe it's been almost a year without my mom. Most days, I try actively to not even think about her. As shitty as that sounds, it's just too... Nope. But when I do think about her, I just think of these happy memories, like when I was 4 and we were visiting my dad at his apartment complex in Scottsdale, and she's wearing this bright neon pink 90s one-piece bathing suit, and I'm holding onto her back in the pool, and she still had her long hair in the back, and so I'm holding onto her ponytail as she's wading through the water. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. But then pretty soon it's me showing up to her office to beg for money, and I'm pale and shaking and kind of scaring her and her coworkers. And she's trying to calmly escort me out, but when she's not looking, I swipe the ring that her mother gave her that was always on her desk. I pawn it, get $60 for it. I get so high that night that I before I pass out that night, I'm laying on the ground and I'm looking up at the stars in the sky, and I remember thinking that they were only a few feet away and that they'd watch over me as I slept. Like they knew I was there, those stars, and they would not let anything happen to me. You feel so damn safe when you're on it. Heroin. I don't believe in heaven or hell or God or any of it. I don't know why I just associate all of that with heaven. Not that life doesn't have meaning. It does. I just think you have to make the most of your life because it's probably lights out forever. You know, you get one shot. This is it. This is the ride. Enjoy this. Enjoy your life. Worry about having a good life, being a good person, doing good for others, instead of worrying about whether or not you're going to go to heaven or hell. It's probably all bullshit. I had a friend once in high school. He was this really tall, really scrawny kid named Matthew. And Matthew was always trying to recruit me to come to his youth group. Okay, he would say, come on, Chris. It'll be fun. They got music and food and girls our age. I said, tell me more about these girls our age. And I went with him once. And, you know, whatever floats your boat. But this place was, if I'm honest, it was kind of like a cult. It was really weird. And A couple times in middle school, my mom took me to this all-black church that was up the street from us. And I remember thinking, now this is what church should be like. Okay, because they had better food at the black church, better music at the black church. The people were nicer, so much nicer at the black church. The minister told better stories at the black church. Maybe if I would have grown up going to this black church, I would have bought more into all the Jesus stuff. What was I was thinking of Matthew, though, because I asked him once if he thought it was possible for bad people to go to heaven. And he said, yes, as long as they repent, get born again, all that stuff. Well, I said, good people do bad things all the time. And so what's the difference? And are drug users in the same category as rapists, murderers? I would hope not. I asked him this way before, what happened to my dad. For some reason, I didn't even think I'd be talking about, the H word. I was just thinking about my mom, and here we are. She was the most beautiful person. She took care of everyone in her life, not just me and all my friends, her brothers and sister. Didn't matter that she was the second youngest. Her coworkers and all of their kids, the neighbors, the mailman. She would be the type to stop and talk to the mailman for 10 whole minutes before he could move on to the next house. She just loved people, and they loved her. And she had this big laugh, and her voice was her accent was thick Michigan, but with a little bit of Texas twang, because she lived in Austin for 2 years in her 20s. And so it would come across oh yeah, honey. Oh yeah, I just want the house clean, and it's fuck. She loved her daytime talk shows, Oprah, Dr. Phil, soap operas, all the small claims court TV shows, literally all of the judge shows. And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be clean. I'll tell you about it. This one Sunday morning, she is driving on her way to the grocery store. And she gets halfway there before she realizes that she has forgotten her wallet. She needs to turn back and go home. And for some reason, she does not take the main street home. She takes a back road. And while she's driving on this road, she comes to an intersection, and out of the corner of her eye, she thinks that she sees my car, silver 2007 Chrysler Sebring, parked in front of this dumpy little house. And so she makes the turn. She goes down the street. She sees my car. She pulls up alongside of it. And now she can see that I'm in the driver's seat, but my head is kind of tipped back because I'm asleep. So she pulls right up next to it, and she honks really loud to wake me up, but I don't wake up. And she honks again, and still nothing. So now she gets a little worried. She gets out of her car. She comes up to my window. She notices that the door is locked. She starts to knock on the window. She looks in, and that's when she sees the needle on the passenger seat. So now she's getting really worried, and she tries the 3 other doors, they're all locked. So now she's really fucking freaking out. She runs back to her car. She grabs her flip little cell phone, calls 911, and then she notices that there's a big umbrella in her back seat. So she grabs that. She runs back to my car, and she busts the window open in 3 tries. She pulls me out. She's holding me in her arms. And she just cries out, God, no, not my sweet baby! Don't let my sweet baby die! Not my sweet baby boy! I wake up in the hospital. I open my eyes. She's the first thing I see. I still don't believe in heaven. You know, sometimes something will happen in the last year, a big event or something, and I'll say, man, I wish my mom could be here to see this. And inevitably, somebody nearby will always say, she does. She sees it. She's looking down on you from heaven right now. Oh, she sees it all. Which always annoys the shit out of me. Like, oh, really? Well, in that case, can I just have the fucking address for heaven? I would love to send her a letter. Also, just the idea, okay, of anyone watching you from up above at all times, I'm sorry, it's just rather unnerving. Oh no. I just thought of another story about her, and I should not say it. It's not appropriate. I would not say it if she were here, but it makes me laugh. And okay, screw it. A few months after she passed away, right, I get a message online from a woman who I don't recognize, and she tells me that she was best friends with my mom when they were in their early 20s, and how they lived together in a house for a year, and it was the best year of her life, blah, blah, blah. She says that they sort of fell out of touch over the years. She would run into my mom sometimes, and she would talk about how much she loved me and I was the best thing in her life. But she hadn't talked to her in a while, and she wanted to reach out to her. Didn't know that she had died. And so instead she was reaching out to me. And she goes on to talk about this year that they lived together. She says it was the best year of her life. They would run the city wild, living off of cheap scotch and blasting MTV in the front yard while they laid out in their bikinis. And another thing that they liked to do was hang out at MIS, which is Michigan International Speedway. Okay, I've never been into Indy racing or NASCAR, any of that. My dad was obsessed with it, which kind of makes this story ironic, and you'll see why. But she says that the night before the big race in the summer of '82, they go to the track, and they liked to flirt with the drivers and their crews. I mean, I don't know if they were race groupies per se, but this particular night before the race, they meet this very famous driver and his guys. And according to my internet research, this guy is a big deal. Like, he's one of only 5 people to win the Indy 500 4 times. So let's just call him Nick. So Nick apparently is really into my mom. When they meet, they all hit it off. And after, a couple hours of flirting and hanging out, my mom and her friend, they invite Nick and his crew to come back into town with them and go drinking at the Brown Hut, which is where a couple years later my dad will ask my mom out. So he says yes. They go back into town. They start drinking. They have a great night. This woman tells me he was really taken with my mom. He ends up back at their house, spends the night. The next morning, he's a little late getting to the track. So he's scrambling out the door, and he leaves a couple tickets for them. They take them. They go to the race. And during the race, Nick crashes his car like really bad. But, he hops out and he's fine. So because he's fine, my mom and her friend think that it's absolutely hilarious because they know the real reason he crashed is because he was hung over as shit from a night with my mom. And, that's as much as she tells me, but I'm reading this back and I'm thinking, kind of sounds like mom banged a celebrity. Go mom. I don't believe in heaven. It was only 2 years that I was on heroin, but to me, those 2 years were like losing 10. I didn't look like me. I didn't feel like me. But after she pulled me out of the car that day, I didn't look back. I go back to school, move back in with her, finish my theater degree, and I meet a girl. And I say, she's the one. We pack up our cars and move to LA to be actors together. We break up a few months later, but I was already in love with California. One day, actually, on the 1-year anniversary of the day that I moved to LA, I'm walking back to my silver 2007 Chrysler Sebring, and I'm in the parking lot of a Ralph's grocery store, and I noticed there's this woman with her cart pulled up behind my trunk. She's got her keys out and she's trying to unlock it. And I say, "Oh, hey, excuse me, it's my car." And this woman doesn't even look up. She's just like, "No, it's not. It's my car. I parked here." And I take another step and I look at the license plate and I say, "No, I'm so sorry. That's my license plate." And then she looks and she's so embarrassed. But I'm laughing because she was so seriously confident that it was her car. But I'm also kind of thinking about how sexy she is. Yeah. And then she just throws her arms up. "Well, where the hell did I park?" And together we notice that there is another silver Sebring parked a few spaces down. It had been blocked by this huge truck. So I help her with her groceries. And normally I would never have the courage, but I ask her for her number. She gives me her name first, Sarah. we go out a week later, but the wedding was such a... We had all these people fly out to LA and drive up to Santa Barbara because Sarah's college roommate's dad let us use their family's winery since neither of us wanted to get married in a church. And I don't mean we got married in a winery, just, the outdoor space next to the winery, but still, great place for a wedding. And my mom was so happy and beautiful that day. Everyone said she was the hit of the wedding. But I remember having this weird feeling that maybe she wouldn't be around too much longer, and so I was just happy that she had gotten to know Sarah and was able to see me get married, She was worried about the wedding being outdoors, and the weather was holding up, but almost on cue, as Sarah and I are finishing our vows, it starts to sprinkle, and I'm freaking out. I'm getting a little nervous because I don't want the rain to mess up my hair, and Sarah knows exactly. She can see it on my face, and so she just takes me by the hands, squeezes them really tight as the minister is wrapping up his spiel. And then we're man and wife. And we kiss. And I close my eyes, and this wave of warmth just flows through me from head to toe. And then I turn to face everyone. I open my eyes. And I notice that it's not raining anymore. And it doesn't. The rest of the night. Sarah did that. She has a way of magically fixing things. And I love her with everything I have. She's just so kind and confident and brilliant. Animals are inherently drawn to her. She can get under my skin like no one else can, but then the next minute have me rolling on the floor because she's also one of the funniest people I've ever met. And compared to her, I just feel like a boy, like a lost little boy. But if someone like that can see something in me, whatever it is, yeah. I mean, most days I'm still a lost boy, but there's all these moments when it's just the two of us sitting outside or taking our golden retriever Max for a walk. I'll look over at her and I'll feel my ring. And I realize that she just makes me feel like a man. Not in a macho bullshit way, just like in a confident, capable way. With her, I'm enough. Despite all my flaws, the millions of flaws, and she has them too, by the way. Don't think she doesn't, okay? She's an event planner that can be terrible at planning. My theory is that she's just such an engaging, warm, whatever person that she's constantly doing 10 things at once. Most of them are in her head, and so she's always running late to things, which drives me up a wall. I bought her a smartwatch for Christmas last year, okay, thinking it would help her set dates, reminders, and things. It doesn't. I don't care. Not really. Our son Jack is 3. And he's just like her. He wants everyone to be happy. Most days I'll be sitting in the kitchen, and I'll look over across the room at him, and I start to cry thinking about how perfect he is. I just lose it. And then he'll look up and he'll see me, and he thinks that I'm sad. And so he'll rush up to me and he'll say, "Smile, Daddy!" And that's almost too fucking cute. I lose it all over again. And I have to say, I'm not sad, I'm happy. Oh. I just never want to disappoint him or have him be angry with me in any way. And I know that's inevitable. I know pretty soon he won't want anything to do with me at all. I just want to always be there for him, you know? Because my dad wasn't. I try to make every decision and every day with him in mind. I probably only eat pizza once a month now. I don't believe in heaven. Losing my mom, though, it's like there's a hole inside my chest. And I know people say things like that all the time, but it really is true. She went very fast. She started having trouble in February. She was gone in early September. She died as a result of COPD in her lungs and neuropathy and pretty much everything else, which is just a fancy way of saying that she died as a result of a lifetime of smoking and drinking. She was a high-functioning alcoholic. She didn't even drive anywhere the last few years that she was alive, and I'm sure that served her well. I mean, she would just walk up to work and walk down the street to the liquor store and to the grocery store, and that was all she needed. She did always try to hide her vices, though. Like, every day she would put her vodka in a plastic cup along with either Mountain Dew or Kool-Aid, even though I always knew what else was in there. At least she never smoked around me, though. God, because I hate cigarette smoke. Like, sometimes we'd be at a relative's house and she would step out onto the patio to have a quick smoke. And sometimes I would follow her out there. And when she saw me, she would just throw the butt away really quick and then hide the lighter behind her back like this. Which I always thought was funny. Like, I felt like the parent catching my teenage daughter. And now I just miss her? You know, most days I can feel that hole. It's right here above my heart. And if I'm not careful, my fingers will just fall straight through into my back. I'm just happy I have Jack and Sarah. They help keep the hole small. Sometimes I think about this great life that I have that I don't deserve, and about all the little micro events that I had to stack on top of each other just to get here. Okay? If my dad had been sold any other bag of heroin that day, would he still have died? Maybe overdosed a few months later from a different dealer. Maybe gotten clean and lived another 30 years. If I didn't go to that college party, I wouldn't have met Teddy. If my mom didn't forget her fucking wallet that day, she wouldn't have found me in that car. Think about, like, Jesus Christ. She forgets the wallet halfway through. She should just turn right around, but she, for some reason, takes a back road. Finds me. And holy shit, think about Sarah, okay? For us to have met, we had to both own silver 2007 Chrysler Sebrings, both live in Los Angeles, the second largest city in America, both live close enough to each other to go to that particular Ralph's. There's over 400 Ralph's locations. Both need groceries on the same day, drive there at around the same time of day, park close enough to each other in this huge lot, and then come back to our cars at just the right moment to bump into each other. Fucking hell. And would we have Jack? You know, if we didn't go through the 2 miscarriages first. Jack and Sarah will be home soon. We're going to go to the park. I don't believe in heaven. I don't. I might. I might believe in heaven. I don't know.
Hey, you. This is your crazy mama calling. You are my sweet, sweet baby. And you know you always will be my sweet baby forever. You are so brave to move out there and stay. And you're handsome and funny and loyal and loving. And you're just all around amazing. I couldn't ask for a better kid. You are my whole life, the light of my life. You're my best friend. I love you, baby. I love you, my sweet, sweet baby. We'll talk soon and have a great day and just keep being who you are. Bye, honey. Love, love, love you.